Okay, so yesterday we were working with standard form. Okay, we saw both its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so standard form couldn't tell us anything about where the graph crossed the x-axis, so the x-intercepts, and it couldn't really tell us anything about the vertex either, right? That was its weaknesses, but we could see the direction of opening and the y-intercept. Those were its strengths, right? That the other two couldn't do as easily. Okay, so for today and the next few days of lessons, we'll be concentrating on factored form. Okay, and you don't know what these are yet. I'm going to describe them down here below. Okay, we will summarize below the strengths and weaknesses, or sorry, just the strengths. You'll be able to identify what the weaknesses are from the strengths for each form of the parabola. Okay, so we already learned number 1 yesterday. That should look familiar, this. Okay, we called this yesterday standard form. Right? And you remember A, B, and C were just numbers, right? That's nothing fancy. It's just you have x's in there and y's. That's your normal variables. And then A, B, and C were just numbers. Okay? So we saw yesterday one of them that could have looked like this. Right? And we saw A would have been 2, 6 would have been B, and C, we need a number there. I don't know, 10. Could be anything. Okay? They're just numbers. Nothing scary, okay? And then we saw yesterday, we were talking about like what information can we find from this? Well, we knew we could find the y-intercept. And we knew the y-intercept was going to be the c value, or where it crosses the y-axis, right? We saw that. You can just see it. It's right there, whatever that number is. So for this particular one, it's 10, right? We also saw, and I'll do a little more explanation around this today, direction of opening. Which most of them can tell you, right? And then for the academics, this will be like an academic topic, the stretches / compression. Okay, this is just going to be a recurring theme, okay? You can see this is going to be the A value, okay? So the applieds don't necessarily... don't need to worry about C there, okay? I'll stipulate there, okay? So the academics will do a little bit more work with this. Okay? And what you're going to see, because it's the A value, and I see, I'll use blue for that, okay? Because it's the A value, and the A value appears in all of these, right? In your list, you can always write stretches. Okay, this doesn't mean anything to you right now, but it will when we get through this course, okay? The whole way down. Okay? And I'll copy this. For those of you in the applied, when you guys take grade 11, like if you're going into the college class, the 3C, you'll do that, okay? And I suppose some of you, like, for the purposes of preparation for next year, it wouldn't be a bad thing for you guys to see that if you're in the applied class, right? Because you're going to do this next year, right? And so some of you are at an advantage because you're seeing material that you're going to see next year again, right? So the academic kids are going to look at that in more depth, right, when we get to it. The applied class, you guys can just worry about for right now these two. Okay. Okay. The second one is what we call vertex form. Oh, I'll use red. Okay, again, the academics are going to spend not a huge amount of time, but a large amount of time spending looking at this particular form. And I think the applieds will probably look at it too, just not as in depth. There will be a few lessons that the academic students will be doing in addition to what we do as a big class. Okay. So it's called vertex form. Some of you could take a guess as to what we might be able to find with this because based on its name, right? We can find things about the vertex, right? Which in turn leads you to the optimal value, right? This is the big one, okay? Being able to read off the vertex, and we care about the vertex in specific situations when we're talking about maximums versus minimums. That's why we care about vertex form, okay? And vertex form will spit out the maximum or minimum value. So then we can answer the question. That's why we care about it, okay? The other thing, most of these are the same. You can see the direction of opening as well. Okay? And then the last one is what we call factored form. Okay? Everybody will be looking at this one in a reasonable amount of depth. Okay? There isn't too much extra that the academics do in number 3 here. Okay? And this is where we're going to spend our time for the next few days as a big group. Okay? Next few lessons. Right? We're looking at this. Again, you can see that there's the A value there, so you see the stretches and compressions, but that's, again, an academic concept. The other thing you can see, okay, that we haven't really talked about yet is the x-intercepts. This form here, factored form, allows us to identify what those x-intercepts are. Okay? And remember, this is where we cross the x-axis. Okay? Again, maybe I'll add a D here, right? So we'll say one of the other ones, again, we can look at the direction of opening again. But there is one additional thing that I think we can find in even maybe both of these. You saw yesterday when we were working with when the graph is already provided for you, you guys could find the middle of the graph, and we called that the axis of symmetry. Okay, you can find that axis of symmetry from factored form and actually up here as well. Okay, so don't forget about some of this stuff. All of these allow you to create a picture of what the parabola looks like, right? And then if we put words on that, things like the x-intercepts make sense in context. Things like the vertex or the maximum or minimum make sense in context with words, right? We can't just jump into the word problems. I got to provide you with some underlying skills so that we can use these equations to answer problems. And that's what we're going to be doing. And ultimately, like you guys solve substitution elimination word problems, that's where we're going to go with quadratics. Okay? You have to be able to put into context what the parabola is doing with the words, okay? And what it is you're looking for. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, what I'm trying to do is give you like a big, broad overview of what we're doing so you don't lose track of what like the important thing is, right? I think we've done this in a kind of an interesting way that I haven't done it before through through finding the commonalities between the courses. Okay, and something good's happened here, right? Is we get the big concepts of why it is what we're doing, right? That I can take and teach again later, right? So if you guys understand the last like 2 days and like you're looking at those graphs and being able to identify the key information, that is what we're trying to do for the next 8 days. Is like use skills that I'm going to teach you in order to write the parabola in one of these 3 forms so that you can read off information that you are interested in the context of a question. So if a question asks you about a maximum or a minimum, you take the parabola, let's say it's in standard form, and you switch it to vertex so that you can see the vertex and answer a question about maximums or minimums, right? If I ask you, or if the question's asking you about the x-intercepts, then you take it and switch it into factored form so that you can read off the x-intercepts and answer the question. That's all we're doing, okay? And sometimes that gets convoluted in the nitty-gritties of the details of the processes, okay? This is a great lesson from the standpoint that we get to highlight all the information that we've been concentrating on for the last few days, right? And what each of these forms are good at answering for you, okay? So just down at the bottom, we'll be concentrating on factored form. I think I wrote that at the top. Maybe I'll write this in blue so you can see it. Different. And then, so that's where we're going to be concentrating, this form right here, okay? So I'm going to jump over to another lesson in a minute, and we're just going to run through some stuff. I'm going to introduce you to factored form, okay? Our main focus for the next stretch of lessons will be switching from, should be a word from, switching between standard form. So I'll give you the equation in standard form, and then we want to switch it because standard form doesn't tell us anything about the x-intercepts. So we're going to take our standard form equation and we're going to switch it into this form so that I can find the x-intercepts. It's going to tell me what they are, right? Standard form and factored form. And then at the bottom, this will allow us to figure out where the parabola crosses the x-axis.